Hey everybody, welcome to the Social Value Show. I am Alan, the founder of FruitCraft Fermentery and Distillery and of the School of Social Value. I don't want to have to do that every single time, but these are the first couple episodes, so get used to it. In either case, today I wanted to talk about something that has been on my mind and in my heart, along with many other people around the country, and that is the campaign of Bernie Sanders. Since Super Tuesday, there's been a bit of a depression that's happened over those of us who are supporters of his campaign and of that message of not me, us. It's a very inclusive movement in the political sphere. And that depression and that kind of lost hope, because we no longer see a clear path to where even if he gets a plurality and beats out Joe Biden in terms of the sheer number of delegates, we know that he's not going to be able to reach 1991. That is, of course, unless Joe Biden has some catastrophic failure. And that because these super delegates are going to come in on the second ballot at the contested convention, they're going to award the nomination to Joe Biden, which essentially means all of the hard work that we've been doing, all the money that we've contributed, and all of our passion and volunteering is kind of going to amount to not as much as we needed to, especially in light of the crises like climate change and healthcare and all the things that he's been talking about, and we, Bernie Sanders supporters, have also been behind him on. And the truth of the matter is, I'm making this video on the School of Social Value page because I saw this coming in 2016. I saw this coming in this last campaign cycle as well. The establishment does not want to give up their power. They're going to fight tooth and nail. And in other election cycles, if the frontrunner emerged like it did, I mean, apart from like Donald Trump, obviously, because they tried to fight that on the Republican side, and that's kind of what happened in the Democratic side. Not going to get into the weeds on that. But normally that person would be, made the nominee, knowing that they had the energy, the momentum, and that they could be the best candidate to win in a general election. That's not the case when the person is anti-establishment and very well could take out of power the very people who are part of that process. The people at the DNC, the people in the current kind of positions of power. And so here's the hope that I have to give you, and that is, if you look at how power works in our world, it doesn't actually start with political power. It starts with economic power. Look at Michael Bloomberg. $500 million spent on ads and organizing and whatnot, and he got a super huge amount of the vote. That money is power. Same when it comes to Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden and Pete Buttigieg and all these other players who are essentially corrupted by the lobbyists who know that when they make it to power, they're not going to rock the boat too much, that the status quo of corporate interests and the power of the super elite are still going to be maintained. But look at where that power comes from. It comes from businesses who made money, and those businesses contributed to those campaigns and to the lobbyists and into the super PACs. Now, how did those businesses make that money? That's the source of power. It was made off of you and me. We bought with those businesses. We consumed with those businesses. When we're invested into the stock market, they are receiving the beneficiary of our investment. We also work for those businesses. I mean, Amazon's one of the biggest employers around. Now, they have jobs, and that's great, but guess what? There needs to be alternatives in the marketplace so we can take back the power that we're handing over to the corporations who are then in turn corrupting our political process. And this social value enterprise business model has the power to do that. You see, by creating a trusted alternative that cannot be corrupted, by saying if a company is community owned and democratically managed by the consumers, by the laborers, and by the investors, that together there wouldn't be conflicts of interest, there wouldn't be winning and losing, there would be winning and winning. When we organize in this way economically, we can now use a new value proposition to attract people who believe what we believe. That means if we want to displace the power of these big corporations, we can buy locally and from community-owned companies. That means we can invest locally and into community-owned companies. That means we can choose to take our labor and apply at those companies and work our asses off to produce value for those companies so that the surplus produced by a social value enterprise could be shared and the wealth could make a more beautiful world instead of one that concentrates it to people like myself who would otherwise end up with huge houses on hilltops looking over the ocean, but not actually finding the fulfillment that comes from the blessing of life, which is a blessing of giving, of sharing, of being part of real community. And that, my friends, is the mission of the School of Social Value. It is the reason why I've given up my shares in FruitCraft, and why I invite anyone watching this video who is a Bernie Sanders supporter to not lose hope. It is not over. Even if he doesn't make it to the general election and Joe Biden loses to Donald Trump, and we are looking at 4 more years of someone who denies climate science, and we're concerned that we're losing even more time to make huge inroads to stopping the trend that it's on, we now have hope to not wait another 4 years. We can do it now, my friends. We can do it now. And this is the invitation to economically become activists. The coining of this show is participatory economic activism. That's because political activism is just too few and far between. I voted in the primaries. It's over. What else can I do? There's nothing I can do except for wait 2 more years. I call bullshit. I can start not spending my money with Amazon. I can start not spending my money with Walmart, provided there are alternatives that can make sense. Enter the social value enterprise business model. Our mission at FruitCraft to take all of our profits and launch other community-owned organizations so that together we can open up our wallets and we can realize that we spend $1,000 consuming every month, and all of that goes to those big companies. Let's look at each slice. Let's start new companies that are true alternatives, and let's take back the power that we should have in a democratically run government and economy. That's my rant on Bernie Sanders. That's my invitation to those who are disenfranchised and who are disheartened by what's been happening in the political landscape in the last couple of days. And I really, really hope that together we can find our power again. So, as always, we end these videos with the mantra, remember to do good and to share with others. Cheers.